Hey everyone, welcome to Intuitive Behavior. My name is Dustin James, and I'm a medium, energy reader, and teacher. My goal is to uncover the unknown so we can all live a healthier, happier, more joyful life. What are you having to drink? What are you drinking
I
today?
have carrot juice.
What's that?
Carrot juice.
Carrot juice. Okay,
Yeah.
that's much healthier than my chai tea.
There's pros and cons.
There's pros and cons to it. Well, cool. I'm glad. Well, welcome, man. It's great to finally get you on the podcast. I know a friend recommended Luke, and I reached out. I'm not sure what I was getting myself into, but I started to take these like fistfuls of vitamins, and I had to send in a hair sample, and it had to be cut. My hair had to be cut a certain way at a certain angle, and I was like, oh, okay, what am I getting myself into? And then I started to take. So after I put the hair samples in, Luke calls me and says, "Hey, we got your results, and this is what's happening. This is what's going on." And he was spot on about all the ways, everything that how I was feeling, what I was going through. And then he said, okay, we're going to recommend you to be on this regimen of these, I don't want to call them diet pills, but they're vitamins. And I'll let Luke explain a little bit more in a second, but they started to change how I felt physically. Like my emotions started to change after about a week on them. And then I was really like what's going on here? And I started to balance out in ways that I couldn't get to by just going to the gym. I couldn't get to by just meditating or, my own ways of doing things. Right. So this got me there fast. So yeah, but I mean, more than this program, I really want to highlight Luke's story and find out, Luke, how did you get into this, to becoming a practitioner and doing the work that you do? And did you have your own complications? Could you sort of share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, when I discovered the program, I was about 22 years old. I'd always been into health and researching health stuff. And at the time, I was working at a gym. It was a tennis club where they also had a gym and a sauna and stuff like that. And I was already doing a pretty strict workout routine and kind of living what I thought at the time was a sort of healthy lifestyle, which was like working out really hard 3-4 times a week. I was eating pretty cleanly, I was drinking and smoking more back then, but I was living what most people consider a fairly healthy, lifestyle.
Right.
At the time, I was actually doing like pre-med classes to be a nurse or a doctor. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go with it. I was maybe considering also going to like exercise science, like kinesiology, because I was really into exercise at the time, learning about like, teaching athletes how to train better for like max performance, how to deadlift correctly, how to do all that kind of, powerlifting type of stuff. So I was really into that. And, I was in pretty good shape. I could lift a lot of weight, but I noticed over time I started to develop brain fog. I don't know if it was from maybe drinking and smoking too much. Maybe it was a combination of that with the extreme sort of workouts I was doing, along with, I was taking those crazy pre-workouts, that aren't the healthiest thing you can put into your body.
Yeah. I've done those.
Right. I started to develop more and more brain fog sort of symptoms. And I started playing around with using the sauna because I noticed actually that when I would use the sauna, my brain fog would lift. It wouldn't lift for very long, but it would lift while I was in the sauna, and it would stay. It was the most clear I'd feel the whole day for about an hour afterwards, and then it would slowly kind of creep back in. And so I knew it was at least lifting the fog, and I knew there was something there with the sauna, right? And I could feel it, helping me. And so basically, when I went down the path, I started researching the sauna therapy on the internet. I started reading about the benefits of sauna therapy. I came across various publications and things like that. And through that sort of process, I discovered Dr. Wilson's website. Okay. I do feel that I'm a pretty intuitive person. And I can tell you that when I discovered Dr. Wilson's website, I knew it was the truth from like 5 minutes. Like within 5 minutes, I knew.
Yeah. It resonated with you.
Right.
Oh. And have you lived your life on sort of, the name of shows intuitive behavior, but have you made some of your biggest decisions based on your intuition and feelings and of things?
I feel like most of my decision making is based off my intuition. And I actually, as far as the decision making process, I put my intuition above anything else in life, really. You know, for a lot of people, that's not necessarily true. But for me, I've always been pretty confident in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I can actually relate a lot to that.
Yeah, you're right. Right. And so for me, when I'm reading truth or I'm watching content from a truthful person, I get a certain feeling. It's like the frequency of it. And I can usually tell whatever it is that I'm watching or reading, or even the person that's talking, I can usually tell if it's truth or not.
Mm-hmm.
I can usually tell the intention behind it and where it's coming from. And so from discovering Dr. Wilson's website, and I knew within a few minutes on an intuitive level that it was an incredible amount of information and an incredible amount of truth that I'd found. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Discovering his website to me is like, it was akin to like, if you're like, I think of like Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. And then you're like, you know, you're trying to find like the book of knowledge or whatever.
Yeah.
And you find like the Library of Alexandria or something. It's like an old dusty book. And you like, when you blow it off and it's like of life or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, that was the experience of, finding his website. You know what I mean? I do think that website is probably the greatest congregation of truth in today's world. I really do.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about Dr. Wilson? Yeah.
So Dr. Wilson is, so before Dr. Wilson, he worked with a man named Dr. Eck. Okay. And Dr. Eck was really the pioneer between hair mineral analysis. Okay. He worked with different companies. He worked with supplement companies. And it was right when hair mineral analysis first came out as a sort of a scientific test that you could do on people. And so it had just come out. And people were experimenting with it. Health practitioners were experimenting with it. Supplement companies were experimenting with it. And they were hiring Dr. Eck to sort of learn how to read the tests, right? Because they knew that at the time, they knew that it could be a powerful sort of diagnostic tool, but they didn't know how to interpret it correctly. And so most of the research at that time was being done into, how do we interpret this and how do we use it for like supplement companies and stuff like that. And Dr. Eck, he pioneered a lot of the ways how to interpret the test. He kind of discovered the mineral systems of the body and how they interact through the hair test and how it's not as easy as replacement therapy. So he discovered it wasn't as easy as if someone's low in zinc on the test, you give them zinc. He found that the ratios between the minerals were the most important thing. And that you actually had to give certain minerals and vitamins to bounce the ratios between each other in order to make the body move in a healthier direction. And he sort of pioneered that sort of thought process and the way to analyze hair tests correctly. And he went on and started a lab, analytical research laboratories. Dr. Wilson, when he was about, I think it was like 30, 35, started apprenticing with Dr. Eck. Dr. Wilson was a very smart man. He went to MIT after high school and got a bachelor's degree at MIT. And then he became a doctor. He went to medical. He went from MIT to medical school, and then he became a doctor. And he went through a similar process that I went through, I would say. And then he eventually came upon Dr. Eck's work with the hair mineral analysis, and he became his main apprentice for a decade or two. And then what he did was he basically just took Dr. Eck's work and refined it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Carried the torch. Yeah.
Right. I would say Dr. Wilson's main contribution to Dr. Eck's work, Dr. Eck laid the framework for the mineral sciences and, how much zinc do I need to take if my hair test says X, right? How many vitamins and minerals should I take if whatever the hair test says, right? So Dr. Wilson's main contribution was number one, the diet, and I would say number two, more esoteric sciences.
Okay. Can you explain what that is?
I would say Dr. Wilson was a more spiritual man than Dr. Eck. Okay. And so Dr. Eck was a much more of a scientific, analytical mind that was using the hair analysis endeavor sort of to run a business and to help people heal, but was more analytical sort of endeavor. You know what I mean? Dr. Wilson was always more into meditation and sort of more esoteric practices. before finding Dr. Eck. And so Dr. Wilson's main contribution, I would say, besides just fine-tuning the diet, would be introducing more esoteric sciences such as meditation into the programs. Those two, I would say, would be the main sort of things that he added to Dr. Eck's work.
So he saw a link between not only the physical, not only
Right.
taking supplements and vitamins, but actually bringing in higher frequencies or connecting the body to higher frequencies or getting into a space where you can do so.
Right, right. And he was able to make the connection between healing people using a more scientific approach and their spiritual growth, because the mind is the body, and it goes both ways. Same with meditation. He discovered that people that would meditate would heal faster on the tests.
Really?
Right, right. And so oftentimes we make the mistake of separating science and sort of spirituality. And so Dr. Wilson's big thing was he was able to combine a sort of new scientific approach to healing using minerals and spirituality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
No,
I
Yeah.
would say that was his major contribution to this, to the sort of evolution of it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is divided. That those two communities are divided. So either you stand on the side of science or you're on they call it woo-woo now. So it's just,
right.
So.
Right. But they're not as divided as people realize, and they're much more intertwined,
Yeah. I mean, they do go hand in hand. I think it's mind, body, spirit, right? It's you need all three to live a well-balanced life here.
Right. And so going to the diet, like I said, when Dr. Eck first started, it was mostly just the supplements and then a pretty clean diet. Although Dr. Eck did recommend certain things, like he did recommend that you ate animal protein, for instance, because he found that vegans on the hair test, they weren't very healthy and it would affect their health doing something like veganism. Right.
In what way? Do you know?
Just more burnout.
Okay.
Right. Worse copper toxicity, like red meat, for instance, is it's very high in zinc.
Okay.
And so he found, and so copper imbalance is a big problem today. And so Dr. Eck's main thing was just like eat pretty cleanly, eat red meat, eat meat at least like a couple times a week, eat some eggs, eat some vegetables. But Dr. Eck actually didn't follow the program himself very well.
Interesting. So he was finding all the research behind it, but not practicing what he preaches.
Yeah, Dr. Eck was one of those dudes who was more like, he was kind of burning himself out, working long hours, not really practicing what he preached so much. Dr. Wilson is more of like the guru personality that like lives it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And teaches others how to like live super cleanly, I would say.
Yeah, he embodies it.
Right.
What are some massive symptoms that people have that would really benefit this program?
Most people today are in some stage of burnout, whether they know it or not. In my experience, what this program is most powerful with, it's most powerful with children, actually.
Interesting.
Right, because how this program works is it works with your, healing takes energy, right? And how healing works when you heal at a deep level is it's peeling back layer by layer, right? So if you're a 70-year-old, unfortunately, if you've been living unhealthy lifestyle and all of a sudden you become ill and you go on one of these programs, you're going to have to peel back 70 years. You know what I mean? It's just the truth.
Yeah.
You can't sugarcoat it, right?
Right.
With children, they have much less inertia. You know what I mean? Yeah. Children are much more of a clean slate, and they have much more energy to work with. And so it's amazing. You take a child and you just put them on, like a child under the age of 5, we might put them on 2 or 3 supplements max. Mm-hmm. And they're just simple, a couple of minerals and vitamins. And the amount of healing that occur in children with ADD, ADHD, autism, all these things that we give, all these labels that we give to children's symptoms nowadays, it's incredible how fast they heal and how many metals they'll dump on the hair test. Really? And how fast they'll detox. Right. And so I would say where the program really shines is with children and with prenatal care.
Wow.
Because like going back to the clean slate, with children, well, you can even go a step before that. You put the mother on a program, you make sure that the child in the womb is getting all the nutrients it needs. Mm-hmm. And then you're starting off from a really great place.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Now, can you, I was having this conversation the other day with someone about hair test versus blood test.
Right.
Just,
Yeah, that's a great question. Now it's important to realize that the blood test and the hair test are different types of tests. Now, there's nothing wrong with a blood test, but people sometimes, especially if you're just the mass public that goes to a doctor, don't really understand what a blood test is. A blood test is much more like in the moment, right? And so, for instance, if you like get your testosterone levels checked or your thyroid level checked, that level will change throughout the day. If I wake up, like if you look at like a man's testosterone levels, it'll be higher at certain points in the day. I think it's like earliest when you wake up and at like 5 p.m.
Okay.
Right. And so if you took a blood test and analyze your hormone levels at those two times, you'd have higher hormone levels. Or if you took something stimulating, like if you drank like a lot of coffee, which stimulates, if you do something that stimulates and you took a blood test, you would have higher hormone levels, basically. The hair test is a much more, it's bigger picture and it's a longer time frame. So when you cut your hair, it's basically your biochemistry of the last 3 months. Okay. And it's much more predictive. Okay. I would say that, blood tests are good, but blood tests are much better, in my opinion, for diagnosing a specific disease that you might have. For example, if you want to find out if you have STDs, you need a blood test. The hair test won't tell you if you have STDs.
Right.
It won't. You know what I mean? The hair test won't tell you if you have a specific disease. Like if you have cancer cells in your body, if you have cancer, you need a blood test. If whatever virus or disease that you have in your body, I would use a blood test, right? Because the hair test won't tell you it. The hair test does not tell you any specific disease or condition that you might have. It only tells you tendencies for them, and it only tells you the current overall health of the body. So the hair test, in my opinion, is much, much better for preventive medicine. And it's much better for overall healing of the body. It'll tell you tendencies for disease. I can look at a hair test and tell you, there's a chance that you might become diabetic soon. You know what I mean? Or you're on the path towards becoming diabetic.
Right, because you could be so out of balance in one way or the other.
Right.
You're exactly going down that path, but there's a chance to turn that around, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah, the hair test is very powerful for turning disease around, for strengthening the body to fight the disease and healing the body at a deep level. But it's not like a test where you don't want to use a hair test to find out any specific disease you might or might not have. That's where a blood test.
Okay.
So I would say that neither is really better or worse. They're just very different. One is more preventative and used for overall healing of the body at a deep level and to strengthen and nourish the whole immune system and everything. And then the blood test is more for finding out specifically what you might or might not have.
What kind of disease are you talking about? Because I know sort of, there's like gut rot, there's like things in the gut.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things, a blood test won't tell you. So that's another benefit of the hair test, right? The blood test, unless you're searching for something specifically, there's a lot of things that it won't tell you, right? A blood test won't really tell you if you have improper gut flora. It won't tell you that you have bad digestion, et cetera, et cetera. What's nice is that when you take a hair test and you focus on not the symptoms, you don't focus on the disease, you focus on healing the entire body itself. And then it doesn't matter so much what you're trying to get rid of or what you're trying to fight off or what you're trying to heal. All you do is you heal the body, and it knows what it knows in what progression to heal itself. You know what I mean? It's very keen to like terrain theory versus germ theory. How our medicine approaches many things nowadays is what they term germ theory. So they find the disease and they attack it somehow, right? So they find a virus and they give you something to fight the virus, or they give you antibiotics. The approach using a hair test, where it shines, is you just heal the body, and it'll fight off whatever it is, and it'll heal whatever it needs to heal in whatever order. And you trust the body's innate knowledge. You trust that the body knows what it needs to do in what order, as long as you give it what it needs. Lots of cooked vegetables. That's one of our favorite things, is cooked vegetables, cooked till they're soft. Okay. And that's true with everyone. But the supplement regimen does shift depending on someone's personalized hair test. That is true. And that's one reason why people don't get a lot of people don't get good results when they take like a multivitamin, or they just take some zinc or something. Let's say you're taking zinc. I run into people, they're taking like 100 milligrams of zinc. That zinc makes a lot of people in our population worse. It's actually making you sicker.
Really?
Right.
That's the
Because,
first thing I have when I have a cold. Someone tells me to take vitamin C and zinc.
yeah, well, little zinc's okay, but I don't like over 20 milligrams unless you have a hair test because it can make you worse. Depending on the ratio, so to gauge how much zinc we give someone, we use the sodium to potassium ratio. Okay, I won't delve too much into the science behind that.
Yeah.
That's a kind of deeper sort of subject that you'd have to delve into for the
Yeah,
scientific.
pretend I know nothing about this. Explain
Right,
it to me that way.
right. But depending on just depending on how your chemistry is, your body might not need zinc, and the zinc might make the ratios on your hair test worse.
Hmm.
And so if you're taking a lot of zinc, it could be making your chemistry worse.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so what's nice about the hair test is it takes the guesswork away and it tells people exactly what dosage they need.
Mm.
Right. And that's why a lot of people don't get good results. Vitamins and minerals are powerful things, but they're powerful going both ways. So they can make you, it's important to realize that the vitamins and minerals can make you worse too. And most people are just doing a shotgun approach, which is probably better than nothing. Just taking a bunch of vitamins and minerals randomly. It's probably better than nothing, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's not anywhere close to doing a targeted approach of how much you actually need to shift the body in a healthier direction.
Yeah.
Right.
So going back to your story, so you had brain fog. You were noticing that you went in the sauna, and that about an hour after that, you felt better. You were probably detoxing, right? What other things were you experiencing, or what really sounds like I know what led you to the path, but what were you seeing in your own body that you just knew that you were unhealthy? What was so unhealthy?
Well, the major thing I would say was brain fog. I had some skin issues, and then big thing was posture. And so it's kind of interesting, right? Maybe you can relate. So I think a lot of intuitives can relate to this. So I'm kind of an intuitive person, and I can kind of see the truth, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things. And so when I watch I would observe really healthy people, like professional athletes that are really healthy and have really, really good posture. And I would just be like, I don't understand. I work out and do the same things that this person's doing. Why does this person, just looking at their body is so much more aligned and their posture is so much better. There must be something. I never really believed that it was just genetics or something like that. Like this person these athletes or these people with really good posture and good muscle tone and like healthy skin. It's just genetics.
They
No,
just come out just amazing.
yeah, they just come
Their
out of
parents did something really,
right,
really
and
right from the start.
right. And I was like, well, I always knew that there must be something deeper going on. Like I'm working out, as hard as these people, or I'm eating as cleanly, but just looking and tuning to their bodies as an intuitive, you can tell that their posture and their nervous system is so much better, right?
Right.
And so part of discovering the program was like realizing, oh, this is a way to get more like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my posture has improved so much on the program, especially like my neck area.
So what would how would posture, how big of a role does posture actually play in our lives? Is it bad posture? Is that a symptom? Is like,
It's both.
Most people wouldn't think that that's a big deal.
Yeah. Really, the most important, I still think, is just raising the energy of the body. A healthy body will have better posture.
Okay. So it's an indicator.
Right. Because you're healthier, you have more hormones in your body, you have more bodily awareness to adjust your posture on a second by second basis. And in general, a healthier body has better posture. The tendons and the muscular tissue and the soft tissue, everything is more malleable because it's more hydrated. It has higher concentration of minerals in it that let it slide atop of the skeleton. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Also, the bones have to be hydrated and have to be mineral dense, et cetera, et cetera. So a healthier body in general will just have better posture. But it does go both ways. Many people have poor posture because they sit on a desk all day and they're lurching forward. and then oftentimes people go to the gym and they make it worse. I see
Wow.
so many people. I used to go to the gym, and so many people, especially older people, with bad posture. And what do people do when they go to the gym? They do chest exercises like bench press, and they do bicep curls,
Right.
and it just makes the posture in our society even worse because it rotates the shoulders forward, neck goes forward, and they're going like this. It just makes
Right.
everything worse.
Right.
Um, Most people need to focus on expanding the chest, rolling the shoulders back, putting the neck back, tucking the chin, things like that. And so I would say it goes both ways, but in general, I would say the most important thing again is just having a healthy body, and a manifestation of having a healthy body will be having better posture.
Right.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. So could you run me through a list of what people may be experiencing, why they would want to maybe look into this program, and then explain a little bit about what they could expect once they sort of get involved and all that good stuff?
The program really helps acne and things like that pretty quickly in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Just using the sauna and eating cleanly, most people's skin starts to clear up pretty rapidly, And I know a lot of young people really struggle with acne,
Yeah.
And when you use the sauna, it cleans your skin from the inside out, and that's very helpful. I would really recommend to anyone that just feels that their child is exhibiting a lot of symptoms like ADD, ADHD, if the child has skin problems, if the child has a runny nose all the time. Many of the children have runny noses all the time, and they're constantly sick and they're fussy. And it'll be well worth it just to give your child a couple supplements a couple times a day in order to just have a much healthier child.
So it's going to help calm them personality down a little bit. It's going to,
yeah, and it helps their brains.
ADHD, can that be turned around? Is that something that,
oh yeah, I've seen cases of ADD, ADHD turned around all the time.
Really? It's not, here's medication, here's a lifelong sentence or a script.
No, children are very easy to calm down. Once you start giving them just some vitamins that help calm the nervous system, things like calcium, magnesium, zinc, they really, really help calm the nervous system. Okay. So these minerals actually have a calming effect,
Wow.
And the vast majority of people notice a difference in their children within a week or two. They're sleeping better. They're more calm. They're not as irritable. Children, you notice a difference almost right away.
Yeah, that's actually what I could experience. That's what I experienced the first week or two.
Right.
What changed for me was my body was calming down. I wasn't used to it because the body was doing it. Almost without my permission, it just kind of did it. And then it's like you're trying to go a million miles an hour, and then your body's actually more calm, cool, and collect. And to tell you the truth, that's when I started to manifest bigger things. I ended up making bigger moves after I was calm.
Right, and that's true with a lot of people in our society. We all lack these minerals, and most people's nervous systems are overfiring. Partially because of the stress of modern life, but also because we lack these minerals in our diets that help calm our nervous systems.
Because it's not in the foods. It's not in the
right.
You can't get it in other places.
Right. Now, eating good food helps. Like I said, we like a lot of cooked vegetables. We like animal protein. Healthy whole grains is good. There's lots of other good foods you can have as well. Raw dairy is an excellent food.
Now, what about people that are lactose intolerant or feel that they need to be gluten free? Because gluten free is a big thing, and dairy is definitely
right. You don't need to eat dairy to heal. But I do find that oftentimes people that think they're lactose intolerant can handle raw dairy.
Okay.
You have to realize that most of the dairy that we eat today is junk dairy, and it's been homogenized, it's been pasteurized, and it's also from sick cows. If you get it from healthier cows or goats even easier to digest than cow milk, like goat cheese, for example. And you eat it raw, so it's not processed like most dairy is today. I find that a lot of people that are lactose intolerant can actually handle high quality raw dairy, especially after they heal for a few months and their gut gets stronger. So dairy, to me, make no mistake, you don't need dairy to heal. You know what I mean?
Right.
But dairy is a good food that you can add to the diet, I find, for most people if they wish, as they heal and they increase the quality of the dairy. You know what I mean? I think dairy is sometimes one of those ones that get a bad rap because you have to realize the bodies are so sick today. It's a lot of things get a bad rap because the bodies are sick, and it's not the food. It's not the whatever you're eating. It's just you.
So what's making us sick? What's making the bodies sick? Is it lifestyle? Is it society?
Part of it is generational.
Okay.
Okay. You think we used to live, if you think of like we used to live in indigenous tribes and things like that, or just if you think of American history, it used to be like 90% of Americans were small farmers and we were growing food on our own soil. America was a new place. The minerals were rich in the soil. We hadn't spread out across the land, and we hadn't modern agricultural practices had not been invented. You fast forward a couple 100 years later, we've introduced vaccines. So we're on third or fourth generation vaccine children now, where their mothers were vaccinated, and then their mother's mother, their grandmother, was vaccinated, and it could be several generations now. We're now several generations deep into modern agricultural, where we grow food on the same soil, and we use pesticides, and we use a lot of fertilizer that it makes the food grow, but it's like steroids. The food is more empty than it used to be. The food will grow because we have plenty of water and we give it plenty of nitrogen, plenty of fertilizer, but the mineral density of the soil has gone down because we don't introduce minerals back into the soil like we used to, just because it's mass production and we want to grow as much as possible in such a short amount of time to feed a lot of people.
Right.
And so we are now, again, several generations deep into a more depleted food supply. We're several generations deep into vaccinations. We're several generations deep into junk food. 100 years ago, Doritos didn't exist.
Right.
Most people nowadays, they're living off of food that never existed before. Most Americans, we're living off of food that never, it's basically man-made food. Right. And so we're several generations deep, right? Your mother might have been living off of Hostess and mac and cheese and Doritos. And then now your mother's mother was living off of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's part of, in my experience, it's generational. And it's just a slow sort of degradation of the health of a society over time.
Right. So a slow buildup of sick bodies. And then we are seeing, so in your opinion, do you see a big increase in children that are now, coming out today, ADHD or labeled ADHD, ADD?
Yeah, I think the children are the sickest they've ever been.
Yeah.
I can see it on the hair test. The hair tests of children are like what you used to find in old people.
Really?
Yeah, they come out, their bodies are already old.
Interesting. Yeah. And in what way?
And their adrenals and their thyroid, they're already in burnout. They're born out of the womb and their adrenals and thyroids are already burnt out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Right. And so how do you turn that around? And what do the adrenal and thyroids, how do they help us? How
you can think of, like, when I say adrenals and thyroid, you can just think of the overall energy system of the body. Those are just the two main glands, but it's really just it's easiest when I say these things to think of it as a system. Instead of saying the children have a sluggish thyroid and adrenals, you just say, the children are burnt out. They're more sickly, they're more ill than they've ever been. You know what I mean? But the adrenals and thyroid are, I mentioned those two because those are the main two energy producers of the body. Those are the two glands that produce the main hormones in the body that keep us going. So the thyroid produces, the thyroid hormones, basically. That's why it's such a huge issue when people's thyroid burns out and they have to take, artificial thyroid medications, because you can't really function without thyroid.
Yeah.
Those are like the two main engines.
Yeah. It's funny because I was actually at a friend's place, and they hosted this party, and there was a conversation around thyroid medication. It seems like all of them were on it. And it gave them better energy.
Yeah, it's basically a stimulant, right?
It's a stimulant, yeah.
Right. Yeah. People don't, in American society, we don't talk about things a lot, and so people that keep medication they're onto themselves.
Yeah.
so many people are on thyroid medication. It's same as like anti-anxiety pills. I think like maybe, I don't know, I think at least a third of the young women today are on some sort of antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication when I talk to them and I ask them. And so that goes back to the generational thing. We have women now that have been on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. And you have to realize all the toxicities, we talk about intergenerational health, all the toxicities, all the deficiencies from the mother pass to the child. So if a woman has been taking anti-anxiety medication, antidepressants, that passes on to the child. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a barrier there. Though the woman and the child, through pregnancy, they share the same blood.
Right.
Right. And so you have children being born today, and the doctors, they don't tell women that, and they don't want to take them off the anti-anxiety medication for whatever reason. Right.
Right. Right.
And so the children are already born with a dose of antidepressants in their bodies.
Interesting. So that totally affects how their personalities will be. It's funny because I just did the last podcast I did was, or I did a recent one with Mandy Rose, and she's a energy practitioner, and she helps remove past trapped emotions. And we had this discussion about how even emotions get passed through the DNA. You're typically inheriting the tough lifestyle that maybe your grandmother, grandfather went through, or maybe even 5 generations back. And those emotions, using emotion code, those emotions get trapped in your DNA, and it's passed through the bloodstream, which you come out sort of, you can come out of the womb a little depressed.
Yeah, and it's all related.
Yeah.
Like if you have adequate levels of minerals, your DNA replication ability improves.
Right.
So you can fix your genetics to a certain extent. Right.
So is it sort of like a genetic hack? Or this is
Right,
hacking?
right. So mineral levels play a part with your genetics as well. You know, certain genes get turned off and on all the time. You know, when you go out in the sun, like a bunch of genes turn on so you can absorb more vitamin D,
Right.
or to produce more testosterone or whatever. Genes get turned off and on all the time. And you have to have zinc and you have to have certain minerals in order to replicate DNA. Or else what happens is when the DNA replicates itself, there's more errors.
Right.
And you get more genetic defects. And so you can improve your DNA and genetics much more, I think, than people realize.
So at this moment, I had these chocolate chip cookies that a neighbor brought me, and I'm drinking chai, and it's raining out. I'm talking to you, and we're talking about diet, and we're talking about healthy diet, but there's a part of me that really wants this chocolate chip cookie. So is there, I have a sweet tooth. I have family members that have sweet tooths. I mean, is this kind of what we're talking about? Does this get passed along as well?
Yeah, I would say to a certain extent. Like everything, it goes both ways. You know what I mean? Cravings can play a part. Sometimes, if you crave something, it can be because you actually do need it. Like,
okay.
If I eat pretty healthy, and if I don't eat healthy for a few days, I feel it, and I start to crave healthy foods. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
But cravings can also trick you. You know what I mean? You can use cravings to run away from things. It can be a more ego-based craving where it's to satisfy your ego and it's not really to satisfy your body. You can make that mistake too. Also, people tend to crave things that will stimulate them oftentimes, like with sugar. It's a stimulant.
Right.
So it uplifts the mood temporarily. You get a natural kind of boost temporarily. It doesn't help you long term. It'll burn out your body faster long term, but temporarily it does make you feel better. You know what I mean?
Would you say sugar is the main component in helping us burn out, or what is there a main not component? I would say
like as far as food goes.
Yeah, as far as food goes, is there something that we should just stay away from?
Yeah, I would say any sugar.
Really?
This surprises many people. I would say even like really sugary fruit-based things. Like a lot of people, they give their kid like apple juice, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Apple juice is basically just dead sugar water. Giving your child apple juice, like just the standard generic apple juice, is like, it's really not much better than giving them a soda.
Wow.
It's really not. So people think that it's
because the amount of sugar that's in the apple juice versus the amount of sugar that's in a soda.
Right. And then the apple juice also, it has basically hardly any minerals in it. It's mass produced apples that they spray with pesticides, and it concentrates in the juice. Same thing with orange juice, for example. Most people don't realize that vitamin C oxidizes very quickly. And so unless you actually cut up on an orange and you like juice it and then you drink the juice that you just like harvested,
Mhm.
If you just like buy generic orange juice, all that most of the vitamin C is already oxidized, and you're just drinking dead sugar water again
Wow.
with maybe a little bit of minerals in it.
Right. So you get
But
the perk from the sugar.
yeah, so many people are addicted to sugar, and then I noticed that they go to drinking like they drink like the apple juice and orange juice, and they drink smoothies and shakes all the times, right? They're like,
Mhm.
oh, I got off my sugar kick. No, you moved your sugar addiction to another sort of. It is a little healthier. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
eating fruit smoothie is healthier than just living off of cotton candy. You know
Right.
what I
You're
mean?
just talking about the sugar content. So you're still getting some benefits. There's other vitamins and
Right.
minerals in there,
But
but
it's not
your body's
right.
moving, is tricking itself because it still wants sugar.
Right. 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 So sugar is a huge problem in our society. Also, just like any sort of like refined food. It's
So
like
any processed foods, basically, just try to
yeah.
steer
But
clear
I'd
of
say
that.
sugar for sure. One singular thing, it'd probably be sugar.
Okay.
Most people in our society are addicted to sugar.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, our bodies weren't really we're not used to getting access to sugar.
Hmm.
We think of like living in a tribe in the forest. Like when you might get some berries once in a while.
Right.
Like especially if you live in a northern climate. Like imagine you live in like Scandinavia. If you lived in Scandinavia, you're mostly living off of like animal protein and like root vegetables that you dug up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never had access to refined sugar 24/7. And so our bodies are kind of they kind of trick us to a certain extent too, because we get addicted to it, because our bodies are designed where like it used to be like if we found a sugar source, like we should eat as much of it as we can, because we're not going to get access to it anytime soon.
Hmm.
Like if we found like a beehive like living primally, and then we get access to some honey, that's a rare event, and we should probably consume as many calories as we can, you know in case we don't get food again for a while. And so it's like sugar is like rocket fuel to our bodies, and we just want to eat it to store it basically for later, to store it as fat, so we can survive in the wilderness or whatever. And so in today's world, people give soda to their like 2-year-old kid, and you're basically just born in a world in a sea of sugar and it's very hard to learn to not ingest it all the time,
And the
because
parents are probably drinking the soda, and the parents are
right.
probably drinking the soda while the child was in their womb. And so how do you break these chains? I mean, these are strong chains. I mean, now we're in a day and age where, I mean, what, Coca-Cola's been around since the early 1900s, at least, maybe even before.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, maybe
it's been ingrained in it's been in our DNA for a while now. So
right.
at what point, I mean, it's like throwing a rock at a freight train sometimes with these diets. You
It
go
is.
really well for a month and a half,
Right.
maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 6. But then eventually you kind of start like kind of going back.
Right. Part of it
As I
is just
finish this chocolate chip cookie.
part of it is just personal willpower.
Yeah.
Like you have to take responsibility upon yourself to make healthier decisions. Part of it is also, when you start eating lots of cooked vegetables, especially, and you start eating really good food and taking mineral supplements, you're
Mhm.
more satiated. So your body will overeat on things because they're empty. When you eat a bag of Doritos or you eat sugar, you're
Mhm.
eating more and you're craving it more than you normally would, because the body recognizes that what it's eating is empty and it wants to eat more of it in order to get more out of it. When you're more satiated, you're eating much more nutrient-dense foods, and you're taking vitamins and minerals that also help replenish your mineral levels. Your body won't crave other foods as much because it's already satiated nutrition-wise.
Mhm.
Sometimes people underestimate the innate wisdom of the body, and they think that like when they're eating all this junk food and they just keep eating and eating. They actually think it's them, but it's actually their bodies a lot of times telling them to eat. And so when you eat this much more nutrient dense food and you're taking minerals and vitamins, the body's much more satiated. It doesn't need to eat as much. It doesn't need the simple foods as much. It doesn't crave them as much.
Right.
So that's a powerful tool.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know what I mean? And part of it is also just digestive wise. When you eat raw fibers, it's much harder to extract the minerals out of it. it's much easier to digest cooked vegetables because the cellulose and the fiber is already broken down for you.
Right.
So it's much easier to digest and get the nutrition out of it.
Right.
So
Right.
salads aren't necessarily a bad thing like sugar, but they're much more empty than people realize, and they're not providing as much nutrition as people think they are compared to cooked vegetables,
Of course, it
especially.
depends on what you have in that salad too. I mean,
Right. So having something like spinach,
mhm,
like a spinach salad,
mhm.
or like kale, would be better than like just straight lettuce for
Right.
sure.
And then protein in that salad, which could be what, fish. You guys are big on fish and lamb and
Yeah, fish are okay. Try to stay away from the big fish because they're full of mercury.
okay.
I can see on the hair test. People eat a lot of sushi, a lot of tuna, especially. It'll show up in their hair test.
So tuna's big. What about salmon?
Salmon's okay, like once a week, I think.
Once a week. Okay.
Yeah. And then you can eat the small fish more often, like sardines or anchovies or.
Okay. I don't know how many people you're going to sell on anchovies, but
Yeah. In general, the bigger the fish, the more heavy metals.
okay.
Right. And unfortunately, it's true with all seafood. Like I can't really recommend much oysters or lobster or anything. They all have heavy metals in them today.
Now,
Unfortunately,
why is that? Why do they have more heavy metals than,
because the oceans are polluted.
yeah,
Right.
it's more polluted?
It's mostly due to lack of regulation in India and China.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So in America and most Western countries, we have what are called mercury scrubbers on coal power plants.
Mm-hmm.
So the exhaust from coal power plants, they go up and they have mercury scrubbers, and it takes like the vast majority of the mercury out.
Mm-hmm.
It scrubs the mercury from the exhaust, so then the air that comes out is cleaner.
Okay.
They don't have regulations like that in places like India and China. And so the exhaust is going up into the air, and then the mercury, it goes into the clouds, and then it rains down and collects in the ocean into the ocean's ecosystem.
Right. Right.
Someday this will not be the case. And it's unfortunate because things like tuna would be a good food, you know. And in time, there will be a time where we clean up the oceans and tuna will be okay again. But at this time, unfortunately, no.
And we have to do it, right? We can't just sit on our butts and say, well,
Right.
hopefully one day it all works out. You know, it's almost like you got to roll up your sleeves and get out there and start doing it in whatever way, whatever platform you have. I mean, you know, whatever it takes, right?
Right. And I do believe, I don't mean to sound so doom and gloom. I know I talk a lot about like the children getting sicker and sicker, but the earth is getting better at this time, I do believe. I think things are shifting.
Mm-hmm.
As people get sicker and their children are sicker, people are starting to realize that Western medicine isn't doing it for them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot more environmental sort of efforts going on at this time. People are a lot more conscious about how they waste and polluting the atmosphere and things like that. So I do think that things are changing.
With the awareness alone is getting bigger, right?
Right. So I do think that we're on the right track at this time, but it's definitely it's an uphill battle.
Yeah. So going back to the health thing. So really, it is about nutritional balance is what it's called.
Nutritional balancing science.
Nutritional balancing science, and this is mind, body, spirit. This is implementing vitamins and certain vitamins depending on what you're burning out in or you're lacking in. So that's done by a hair sample. And then it's also implementing some breathing exercises, right? I know we covered that. We didn't cover those actually.
Breathing. Yeah, deep breathing is excellent. Anytime you practice breathing into your abdomen, and there is a specific form, you can call it a meditation, although nowadays I lean towards calling it more of an exercise that we also specifically really like.
And what's that?
It's what we call the pulling down exercise. Okay. And this is moving energy downwards from your head to your feet.
Okay. Do you want to, can we try it out? Can we do it right now? Can I be your guinea pig?
Yeah. Okay. For me, the most powerful thing is like, if you imagine your feet are like a vacuum.
Okay.
And your feet are pulling the energy downwards. Just like a vacuum.
Your energy into the ground.
Right. And your feet, either like the ground or your feet or right below your feet, it's pulling the energy downwards, like a vacuum or a black hole or whatever you want to imagine.
Okay.
And it's pulling it down.
Okay.
And we found that this is a very powerful exercise.
And then how long do I keep imagining that the ground just below my feet are pulling my energy down toward it?
Well, there's no overdoing it.
Okay. So I
There's
can just
no,
sit here all day in the rain and
right.
okay.
Preferably, you become more accustomed to it and you're naturally doing it all the time.
And this is very much, I feel like I'm in a meditative state at the moment. Like I went right into meditation.
Yes,
And then
yes.
how about my breathing? Do I just kind of focus on the energy
My
pulling
experience,
down?
I think that it's actually best if you just focus on moving the energy downwards,
Okay.
and then whatever happens with your breathing happens as a result of it. So it'll naturally slow down your breathing. It'll naturally deepen it. It'll naturally slow down your thoughts. I think many people make the mistake of trying to control their thoughts or focusing too much on their thoughts or their breathing. Focus on doing the exercise, and then everything else will manifest as a result of that.
Okay. Wow.
Right.
Yeah. I feel a difference. I feel lighter.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've been drinking chai tea, you've been drinking carrot juice, but I've been drinking chai tea and eating these chocolate chip cookies during the interview, and um, I'm feeling actually more calm
Yeah. It's
just in the
very
short
calming.
amount of time that we've done this. Yeah,
It's very grounding.
it's grounding. That's what I feel. More
Yeah.
grounded.
Right. It's very grounding.
Because my energy, I have high energy, and I tend to be, up here. It's like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Yeah, that's always been my, tons of energy. And but I feel like it really, yeah, it's grounded.
Right. In my experience, as strange as this may sound, and for some people it's definitely more esoteric. Some people struggle with more than others because the rest of the program is very scientific and it's much more mechanical, right? Eat cooked vegetables, take your supplements, drink water. You know what I mean? It's mechanical. And so for many people, they actually struggle with the pulling down exercise more than the other components. I think partially because of the society we live in. It's a much more scientific, analytical society in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And people were kind of raised with that sort of thought. But in my experience, the pulling down exercise is the most powerful part of the program. It's more powerful than the diet. It's more powerful than the supplements. It's more powerful than using a sauna. I actually think in my mind, intuitively, 50% of the program is the pulling down exercise, and it's is as important, so 50%, as everything else combined. That includes supplements, diet, going to bed early, drinking water, whatever.
Right.
Right.
So could one maybe practice this little pulling down exercise? I mean, it's free. You
Yeah.
just sit
Yeah.
here in a chair and you.
Yeah, I encourage everyone. You don't need to be on any specific diet or anything. Eating cleanly, certain things will actually help you do the exercise more. If you eat cleanly and you're well rested and you're well hydrated, you'll find that the energy flows easier.
Right.
It will. So those things are definitely intertwined. But yeah, if you're listening to this, I encourage everyone to do it. You don't need to get a hair test to do it. You don't need to follow any sort of specific diet to do it. And it's a very powerful life hack that will help you in every area of your life. It helps you ground you. It helps calm the nervous system. It actually brings healing energy into the body. It's like you're charging.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually bringing in energy from the heavens into your body, and it will heat it up. Oftentimes when I'm doing the exercise, I can feel my body actually heat up from the energy. It'll heat up and it'll start healing certain spots. I'll feel up heat. It'll heat up like areas where I have like postural problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll help your posture as well. It helps really build awareness.
So this could even help you maybe cut off those past ties with people or toxic relationships because you'll start noticing
Yes.
things
Exactly.
things that are good for you, things that no longer behoove you.
Right. Yeah. Many people have problems in their life just due to lack of awareness. Right. If you're aware of how a food makes you feel, then you will tend to eat healthier. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you become more aware of the toxic relationship you're in, you'll realize you're in a toxic relationship and you need to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
If you just learn to observe yourself and observe the world around you, most problems simply just go away.
Right.
Just by the act of observing them.
And you're having
Right.
more of your power back to you.
And
You're
as you're actually
becoming more
bringing the truth,
clear.
right? And you're bringing the truth into your body. It's actually truth as well.
Interesting.
And so we talk about having an intuitive sense of what the truth is. This will help that. It'll help build your truth awareness, because the truth is it's like a frequency, and you're bringing that energy, that truth, or whatever you want to call it. If you're a Christian, you can call it the Holy Spirit, right, or God, or whatever. You're bringing that into your body, and so you become more aware of what it is and what its frequency is and what it's like to experience it.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can then begin to tell more so in your life what's closer to that and what's not as close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. So cool. Well, do you have, I know you and Lewis have a YouTube page out there, and do you have videos where people can go to that YouTube page, and do you have examples of how they can do this? Because I don't know if they're going to get it from that little exercise.
Yeah, I would recommend watching the channel trailer, the new one that Lewis created a couple of weeks ago. It's more edited, polished one that talks about just what nutritional balancing science is about and what we can kind of accomplish with it.
Mm-hmm.
It should be the main, when you visit the channel, it's like the main one that automatically,
the top one. Yeah,
the top one you can play. I think it's just called What is Nutritional Balancing Science? I think that's what it's called. I would recommend that you watch that one. It's a very good video that Lewis created, and he edited it, and it's got like music and like animations and stuff.
Cool.
You can just do a search right on the YouTube bar and just type in deep healing space pulling down exercise.
Cool.
That will get people there.
Cool. And then you have a website, right?
Yeah, and then the website is just deephealingspace.com.
Okay. And any other forms of media where people can stay up to date on what you're doing out there?
We have an Instagram account that Lewis runs. I think it's just Deep Healing Space on Instagram.
Okay, so you can jump on the phone with someone, do a quick consultation, little bit of a tailored approach, get them going in phase 1.
Yeah. They can just shoot me an email, and I can kind of get them started on just if they don't have the money. For example, a lot of people, they don't have the money to do a full program, and
right.
You can do a basic program where there's no hair test, but you're doing the pulling down exercise, and I can show you what water you should be drinking, and how to go to bed early, and like what supplements. You can take certain supplements as well that will help you on your journey without a hair test. Things like kelp capsules,
right?
Or taking a cow mag, or just taking a little bit of zinc.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
And you don't need the full program.
Cool. Luke, thank you so much for your time today. For anyone listening out there, go to deephealingspace.com, go to their YouTube channel, Deep Healing Space, email Luke. He'll hook you up. He'll get you on the right path.
Yeah. Nice talking to you guys. I hope you enjoyed all the good info.
Yeah. And Luke, I'd love to have you back on, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more, blockchain heavy, or, what people can do. He's a well-rounded guy. So he's not just health.
Yeah.
He's also health and wellness and the financial sector, and very successful in those areas. So I'd love to have you back on, and we can sort of break into another topic if you're so inclined.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening, and bye for now.
All right, bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to Intuitive Behavior. I'm your host, Dustin James. If you'd like to hear more episodes like this, head on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe. You can also go to intuitivebehavior.com for all updates. Until next time.